Thanks to the Congress member. We're excited that he could share that video with us. Thank you for being here. I'm excited to talk to you and learn a little bit more about the company. And I think for folks who may not be familiar, what does Bon Appetit do?
Hi, Danny.
Hey.
It's nice to be with all of you today. Before I tell you a little bit about Bon Appetit, I got to tell you that I sat here for the last few hours, and all of you have warmed my heart. 39 years ago, when I started Bon Appetit, I felt like the Lone Ranger. I felt like I was the only one talking about food and sustainability and farmers and all that. And I got to tell you, I was alone. If you think about 1985, it's probably before some of you were born. Nobody talked about food like this anymore. And so what you're doing today is amazing, and it's just, it's incredible. That's all I got to tell you. I finally feel that I have partners out there working with farmers and about access of great quality food and so forth. So let me just tell you that 39 years ago, I felt that I wanted to disrupt and change an industry, this contract food service industry, because I was appalled at what was going on college and university campuses about food that was out of a can and frozen, and nothing was cooked, and there was no chefs. And those of you that, if you were in college back then, you know what mystery meat was all about and all of that. And I thought, coming from the restaurant side of the business, I thought, there's got to be a better way. And so here we are today. Bon Appetit is thank God, a hugely successful company. We serve Spelman, we serve Emory, lots of colleges and universities across the United States. We do a lot of high-tech companies. We do museums, performing arts centers, and so forth. And so I'm very proud of what we built over the years to create a brand, especially to be able to share all of our sustainability initiatives with the world.
Thank you for that. I wonder, sustainability has become this term that sometimes means nothing and sometimes means everything. As for Bon Appetit and for you personally, what does sustainability mean?
Well, I got to tell you, Danny, it started at the very beginning of starting the company. I worked with the Pew Commission as a commissioner for 4 years out of New York, and I looked at factory farms, which we call CAFOs, or concentrated animal feeding operations. You know them as factory farms. And I looked at so many across the United States, starting with North Carolina, Duplin County, and the mess that they were doing, raising hogs, gestation crates, chickens with battery cages, how waste was impacting our waterways. And I went all over the country, and I spent 3 years doing this, and the light bulb finally went off, and I said, we can do better. We have a broken model of agriculture, which I still believe we have today, and that what we need to do is be able to source food in a local kind of way through farmers, through artisans, and to deal with protein that doesn't have non-therapeutic antibiotics in it. All of those things caused me to think about, how do we define sustainability for us? So my chefs had a roadmap to be able to go and source food, which I heard all of you talk about today. And that was flavorful food that was healthy and economically viable for all, that would respect farmers and workers and animals. Animal welfare is a huge thing on college campuses today. It's probably why we do more plant-based foods than we do protein in terms of animal protein. And to be able to embellish communities and at the same time replenish if we do all of that, we can replenish our natural resources for future generations. That's what sustainability is for me. And that roadmap causes our chefs to do the things that I heard you talk about today. We've been working for years with local artisans and farmers, all within 100, 150 miles of our locations. Excuse me. When nobody else was doing this. And we cared a lot from the beginning. I cared a lot. Maybe it's because I'm Italian, I don't know. But that culture of great food, I remember with my grandmother going out and in the fields and picking mustard greens and having that with beans for dinner. That's all we could afford for a week. We did have chicken on Sunday, though. That was a big deal. But all of those roots, and you talked about culture today, came back to me as I was starting this company. And so I got to applaud you for what you've done and how you've collaborated together to create what you did this afternoon. I mean, I've been in a lot of conferences. This is the first time I've heard, and I've got so excited about what I hear students talking about and what I hear you embellishing the farmers and all of that. So I applaud all of you for that.
I do too. I think this has been an amazing conference to lift up the role of farmers. How does the private sector do that better? Because you were able to do it, right? To lift up the role of farmers, to source from them locally, to work with them directly, to have your chefs visit their operations. How can we better do that, though, overall? Bon Appetit is a very particular company with a very particular sort of mission.
I think the more we can message how important local farmers are and access to good food, the more we can message that, the better off we are. I will tell you that I felt like the Lone Ranger. I told you that in 1985. But the industry's caught up now. There's a lot of good companies out there doing really good work. And it's because of the young people today that care about these issues. When I go on college campuses, I say, typically I'll tell you that my generation could give a damn about this stuff. I can tell you that. But young people care about it, and they're the ones that are going to change the future. I said I thought we had a broken model of agriculture. I still believe that. The Pew Commission was able to go to Congress twice and try to deal with this whole issue of non-therapeutic antibiotics, where they bring animals to market a lot faster, and it didn't do any good. It was like, because the lobbyists are so strong. But I can tell you that I see it starting to change. I see young people that I heard today and what I see in this room that I talked to care about these issues. They care about what we put into our bodies. They care about more plant-based foods. They care about the farmers. They care about animal welfare. They care about climate change. Agriculture is the biggest issue we have, one of the biggest issues of climate change. So the more that we can think about how do we reduce a little bit of less red meat and more vegetables and fruits, the better off we are, and this world will be a better place for it. That's my answer. And I really think that the more you message, the more you guys do, the more Food Tank talks like they do today, the more companies will get this. I will tell you that companies today that start a business, if they don't have a purpose, they die. You need a purpose. And most companies that are successful have a purpose. I don't care if they're retail, if they're in the food business, they're in healthcare, whatever, but they have to create a purpose that resonates and creates an emotional attachment to consumers. Once you do that, then it starts to change. And someone said it earlier, they have optimism for the future. I do, because I think the young generation is going to help us get there.
There is no doubt that Gen Z, Gen Alpha want that story of their food. How does Bon Appetit help the chefs that are working with you tell the story of the food through your operations?
So our chefs go into we have no menu cycles, and we have no big recipe boxes. They go into the fields and work with farmers. And once we audit those farmers to make sure that they're dealing with the right wages and there's water and there's shade and all the things that are important, the chefs then will start to set up and source from them all over the United States. They know more about the farmers than I do or any of our leadership team does because they work with them every day. And the idea with working with small farmers was I felt strongly at the beginning that we were losing flavor on our plates. And if we could pick an apple from a tree instead of having it, flown all over the United States, a tree that was close to the kitchens, that apple would taste so much better. And so this was not a political act. It was all about flavor and taste and so forth. Someone mentioned about taste, that it had to taste good no matter what you do. So our chefs they embrace this whole area to work with farmers and have them grow what we need to be able to source the kind of food that we need for our campuses.
The company Bon Appetit and the chefs you work with have also been leaders on reducing food waste. Can you talk about why that's so important to the company?
Yeah, food waste is a big, big issue. You all mentioned that today. We created a software program so the chefs understand that at the end of the meal, they can actually know how much waste or leftovers that we have. And we can do a number of things. We can do food recovery with that, or the more that we can, if we can batch cook, which we do, and by that I mean we don't put food out at 10 o'clock and leave it in a big hotel pan for noon. We batch cook as we go. We never use big hotel pans. So in smaller portions, so we know it's fresh and so forth, that helps to reduce waste. But we have programs in every one of our locations that will help reduce this waste, and we know immediately at the end of the meal how much waste there is and what we can do with it, so forth. The other issue is we can look at the whole array of fruits and vegetables and try to use as much as we possibly can, whether it's in stock pots for soups or things like that. So it's a big, big issue with us, and I think we're doing a really good job with it.
Yeah, there's been so much progress over the last decade about food loss and waste. I think in our final 2 minutes, Fidel, I'm wondering from you, you've seen so much progress during your career. You were the lone wolf, on a lot of these issues at the beginning, as you mentioned. What do you hope to see happen in the future? What do you want the young, the companies that we don't even know the names of yet, the young Bon Appetits to be doing in food service going forward?
Well, there's a lot of young people in this room, and you're going to continue this on. I mean, I'm getting to the point where I've done this so long, I'm still doing it because I feel I'm on a journey that it's still broken, needs to be fixed. But I have a lot of faith in the young people that as you start to think about building a company or becoming an entrepreneur or helping the communities that you work, live, and play in, if you can think about how do we, because I do agree that food is medicine, how do we have good access, great food for people? How can we teach people about the issues of the animal welfare and climate change? The more you message this about whether you're starting a company or you're just working in farms or working with the local farmers, or you think about it when you go to a grocery store, the more you start to think about what you heard today, the better off we're all going to be. And we're going to be better off for our grandchildren and our children and the next generation. So it's in your hands. At least I don't feel like a Lone Ranger anymore. I feel that there's a whole bunch of people here that care about the same things that I cared about back in 1985. And I think we're making progress. And so I'm pleased to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I'm sorry I just rambled on a little bit, but I get very impatient and very excited about this kind of stuff because this is my world. So
we need more impatience. We need more urgency. Thank you to Bon Appetit for feeding Emory, Spelman for feeding all of us today. We appreciate the efforts that you've done towards sustainability. Thank you.
thank you, everybody.